By the bank of a clear blue river, where the water sparkled under the sunlight, lived a gentle pair of cranes. They built their home on a tall, sturdy, and quiet tree branch, believing it to be a safe place to begin their family life. Not long after, the female crane laid her first 3 eggs. Both were overwhelmed with joy and hope, taking turns each day to care for the nest and warm the eggs with all their love and anticipation. In their imagination were images of tiny chicks about to be born, bringing complete happiness. Day by day, that hope grew stronger. Then on a bright sunny morning, the 2 cranes left the nest and flew to a nearby stretch of the river to find food. The river was rich with fish, so they quickly filled their bellies and hurried back, their hearts full of excitement. But when they returned, the sight before them left them frozen in shock. The nest was empty, and the 3 eggs were gone. They searched frantically everywhere, yet there was no trace of the eggs or the thief. Pain and helplessness surrounded them, forcing the 2 cranes to accept that the children who had not yet been born were lost forever. Unwilling to let such a heartbreaking tragedy happen again, the pair decided to abandon their old nest and build a new one elsewhere, more hidden and secure. As time passed, the female crane laid eggs once more, carrying new hope after the earlier losses. This time, both were far more cautious. Each day, the male crane flew out to find food, while the female stayed behind to guard the nest, never taking her eyes off the precious eggs. They believed this vigilance would protect their fragile future. Yet one fateful morning, when the male crane returned, he heard the sound of his mate sobbing from the nest. A sense of dread tightened his chest. Then his greatest fear became reality. The eggs were gone again. This time the female crane knew exactly who was responsible. A vicious snake had silently climbed the tree and swallowed the eggs right before her eyes. Despite her efforts to resist and drive it away, she was no match for such a dangerous predator. All she could do was retreat in despair, helplessly watching her hope be completely destroyed. Pain, resentment, and injustice filled the male crane with rage. Not knowing how to end this chain of loss, he decided to seek out his wise friend, the crab, to ask for advice, hoping to find a way to protect their home. After hearing the male crane's sorrowful story, the old crab fell into deep thought. It understood that the repeated losses had left the pair both desperate and eager for revenge. In a calm voice, the crab advised him to stay composed, warning that acting in anger could make things even worse. After careful consideration, the crab came up with a plan. Leaning closer, it whispered each step to the male crane, instructing him to follow it precisely and not act hastily. Hearing this, the male crane felt a glimmer of hope after days of darkness and quickly flew back to the nest to share the plan with his mate. Though still worried and afraid, the female crane realized they could not live in fear forever. When the next breeding season arrived, she laid eggs again, and both decided to follow the crab's plan. The next morning, the male crane flew to the riverbank, caught small fish, and carefully placed them in a trail stretching from the mongoose's burrow straight toward the tree where the nest was built. Then he flew near the snake's den and deliberately announced loudly that the nest had eggs again, hoping to lure the enemy out. Though his heart trembled for the safety of the eggs, he believed that if they did nothing, the snake would eventually come anyway. The smell of fresh fish awakened the predator's hunting instinct. The mongoose followed the trail until it reached the tree, just as the snake was also approaching with the intention of stealing the eggs. Seeing the snake, the mongoose immediately attacked, believing it to be a dangerous threat. The 2 predators became locked in a fierce and breathless battle. In the end, the mongoose killed the snake. From above, the pair of cranes sighed in relief, believing that the long-lasting nightmare had finally come to an end. However, their relief did not last long. Just one day later, when the 2 cranes left the nest to search for food as usual, they had no idea that a new danger was quietly emerging. When they returned, the sight before them stunned them once again. The mongoose was climbing down from the tree. With a terrible sense of dread, the cranes rushed to the nest and discovered the painful truth. The eggs had been completely eaten. This new enemy was even faster, bolder, and more dangerous than the snake before. Broken-hearted and desperate, the cranes realized that their own plan had unintentionally created even more serious consequences. In their haste to eliminate the immediate threat, they had failed to foresee the risks that followed. Instead of protecting their home, their thoughtless action had brought another predator even closer, destroying every remaining hope. The story of the two cranes serves as a profound reminder of the challenges in human life. Sometimes, in our desire to solve problems quickly, we choose solutions that seem easy, but lead to heavier and longer-lasting consequences. When facing difficulties, what matters is not only taking action, but thinking carefully, staying calm, and looking beyond immediate results. Only by weighing all possible outcomes can we make the right decisions and avoid turning a small problem into a great tragedy.